Dear viewers, the Hindi Heartland, Ghazala Wahab, who is also the author of best-selling and award-winning books, touches upon several aspects, particularly caste, that shaped India's Hindi Heartland as it stands today. Let's listen to her for understanding of caste system in broader context.
The post-independence era. I want to start with caste. Now, politically, numerically, a lot has been talked about. कितने caste है यूपी में, कितने caste बिहार में है, who is how many percentage, and politically, what is the weight that they carry. And you write that, and I want to sort of step aside from that and look at a more broader picture. You write that in the Hindi belt, particularly, while religion is the predominant determinant of caste, it is not always the only one. And then you recollect an anecdote from your schooling days back in 1989 that showed what you call the subtle cruelty of caste assertion. Then you go on to write that caste conscious Indians seem to be stuck in a time loop. What happened in a classroom in 1989 had happened many times in the past and continues to happen. Tell us about that incident from your school, and for someone watching this from outside of the Hindi heartland, how significant does the caste system play out on a day-to-day basis among individuals part of that region?
If you recall, when I narrate this incident in the book, before I come to that incident, I narrated somebody else's experience also, which was slightly similar to that experience which I had, and that person's experience was at a place of her work. So basically what happens is that you identify a person by the caste, and then you expose that person in front of others who probably wouldn't know that person's caste. So in my class, what happened was my teacher, he asked this girl to stand up in front of everybody else, asked her full name, so her caste name was then known to everybody, asked her what her parents did, what her father did, how much she scored in her school examinations. So all of this was aimed at isolating her in the rest of the class. So everybody, all the classmates knew exactly that this person has come here because of the quota. And that then further led to her isolation amongst the peer group because nobody else would talk to her then. So this is something I experienced when I was in my first year college. And subsequently, whenever I have met people, I have heard similar stories from others, and I've narrated 2 incidents in the book also. One experienced this in a media house and another experienced in the university. So this is something which is really, really so deeply entrenched that I don't think it is Hindi belt specific. It is just a way of identifying people and telling them where they belong, what their position even in that small group of people or even in that small community of professionals is.
Dear viewers, media personalities Smita Prakash and Ranveer Alabadia needs no introduction, so to speak. Both are Brahmin, but they seem to have a lot of empathy for the Dalits.
India is that people will see me, assume that I'm from a city because of the way I'm dressed. And the next question is, par Alabadia matlab kya? And they're actually asking me for my caste.
Correct.
And I'm like, why should I tell you my caste? But for them, it's a very normalized question. And that's when you realize, oh shit, this is not even a village. This is Banaras. This is, Shimla. Parts of India like that are still concerned with what your caste is. So you can't imagine what rural India is like.
Yeah. So there is discrimination. I totally get that, there are many, my name you can't tell what my caste is or anything like that. It's also a privilege, Ranveer, because you have not faced discrimination. It's not as if you've lived your life in a metro, but even in a metro, if you come from a different caste, from a caste which has faced discrimination, you would face it even in a metro. Maybe not to the extent that you would in a tier 2 town or a village, but it's very, very there.
Like what happens?
In school, it will happen.
Really?
Oh yes. It happens in subtle manners in cities because people know that they ought not to say it openly. But in tier 2 towns and all, it just comes very naturally. They will not. I have seen a very senior politician, I'm not going to name, but a very senior politician. I was covering the Rath Yatra and of Advani ji, and you kind of will figure out who I'm talking about, but I will not name. So the media sits and eats, right? So हम लोग सब साथ में बैठ रहे थे. We were just about 5-6 of us covering that stretch of the Rath Yatra, and the food came in, and I saw this person who was not very senior at that time, and he was sitting separately. He was not sitting with us. He was just sitting alag se. So I just asked the person next to me, said, why is he sitting separately? Like, I thought he's, angry with us or something like that. That's why he's sitting separately. Saying no, because the person sitting on your left is a Brahmin, and so that person is sitting separately because he thinks that maybe that guy will not like it that he's sitting with you.
Wow.
And I'm not sure that the person on the left was actually saying that, or was practicing it, or whatever, or has a reputation or not, or that person out of scene na ban jaye, was sitting separately. But he's obviously faced that kind of discrimination in the past, right? So he's faced it, and that's why he'd rather not have the embarrassment. Another place that I went to, I was an academic that I was interviewing, again regarding politics, but I was sitting there and talking, and like your guys came and gave me water, so they kept a banana and water. I was like, who keeps a banana, and kept tea. So I said, नहीं मैं चाय नहीं पीऊंगी, मैं चाय नहीं पीती हूँ. So he's saying, आप केला तो खा सकते हैं, केले में क्या है? So I was like, why? So then I said, okay, so just in case they feel that I'm not eating. So I peeled it and I ate it. And when I went out, my cameraman told me that he is from a low caste. He thought that okay, so just in case they feel that I'm not eating. So I peeled it and I ate it. And when I went out, my cameraman told me that he is from a low caste. He thought that you are upper caste and you're not drinking the tea. So that's why kela was kept, because kela you peel and eat and it doesn't matter which caste you are. I felt so terrible. I said, but I don't practice casteism. How did he know what my caste is? And so he said, they inherently know. So they, as a reflex mechanism, they kept that. I felt shitty at that time about my privilege, that generations of my people from my caste was somehow made this person who has, who's seen it maybe, or who knows it from experience.
This is the Desi version of white privilege.
Yeah. So I didn't realize it till I got to the workplace. I didn't face it. That is my privilege, that I didn't face atrocity. So it's not my fault that I didn't face it. So I can get aggressive and say कि मेरी क्या गलती है, मैं थोड़ा ना, क्या मेरे पूर्वज ने किया होगा, और वो भी नहीं मुझे पता मेरे पूर्वज ने किया कि नहीं किया, But the fact is that it takes generations for confidence to build in people who for generations have been subjugated. There was a Dalit village and an upper caste village. And there are certain places where Dalits were not allowed to, or even backward caste, not necessarily the most backward, Ati Dalit bhi nahi, but Dalit or even slightly above, they were not allowed to own land, only work as landless laborers. So maybe say they sent their daughter or son to study, वो IAS चला गया, he's become an IAS officer, she's become an IAS officer. Maybe through the quota system or whatever the system, but she's become, so there is some kind of money which is coming into that Dalit person's home, because money order economy, that money is coming in. Makes a pakka house, but still is in that Dalit village. If he or she wanted to buy a plot of land, to cultivate that plot of land, it took a long time, because that it wouldn't be registered. Now,
dear viewers, India's caste system has extended to the West, including UK and US, is a fact.
Discrimination has been banned in India since 1948, but it persists and it travels. Seattle has just become the first city in America to ban discrimination on the basis of caste. The city has a large South Asian population, many of them working in the tech sector. But supporters of the bill say the caste system is still being used in the United States to discriminate within the workplace, within housing, retail, sometimes in public places. In the future, it will be identified in its own class, alongside race, religion, and gender identity. Caste goes back some 3,000 years. It's a very ancient form of social hierarchy that originally divides Hindus into four main categories. For centuries, it bestowed many privileges on the upper caste, while sanctioning the repression of the lower caste. But no class was more discriminated against than the Dalits, the outcasts. But was the change in the law necessary in a city where South Asians still only make up 2% of the population? Joining me to discuss is the Seattle councillor that wrote the legislation, Sharma Sawant. Very welcome to the programme. Thank you for being with us. You obviously have your own Indian heritage. Have you ever witnessed this kind of discrimination firsthand?
I've definitely witnessed it in India where I was growing up, and in Seattle and in the United States as a whole. We've had hundreds of oppressed caste workers, as you said, specifically in the tech sector, publicly testify to the city council and talk to me as in my capacity as council member, that an elected representative, working people, that this is happening. And in fact, statistical studies are now recognizing that caste discrimination in the workplace and in other situations has become pervasive and has become a serious issue in the US.
Minya Zabud Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan. Ana Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan.